quickly go around the room. This is an old good friend of mine. This is Joe Berry. This guy knows more about Clay County history than all of us have forgotten. And he is still an active minister and has a little church up the street. This is our good friend Ron Robertson with the Clay County Crescent background and printing and all that kind of stuff. Steve, you know, Eric, great. I said, yeah, and his sidekick,
Terry.
And
Debbie.
once again, we're all here today. If you have any questions or if you want to make a comment, let us know. All right?
There's a map in the courthouse, I thought it used to be, of the township plat that shows the reduction.
Oh, it does?
Langs and Cones hammock. This is described as he was reducing his 16,000 to 8,000, and said that on January 25, 1819, the claimant petitioned the governor of the province, setting forth that the neighborhood of White Spring,
That must be here.
which had been granted to him, did not answer his expectation, and praying that the surveyor might be directed to alter the survey so as to reduce the square of 5 miles to the depth of about 2 1/2 miles by its original length of 5 miles, and to survey the residue of this quantity granted to the petitioner in the hammock called Langs and Cones, situated on the south side of Mizell's Lake. Mizell's Lake. I've never heard of those before.
I've never heard of that.
And if I can stop Joe, I know we're getting
Well,
somewhere.
I've read it in this grant, but I have no idea. But you know, before the railroad went through here, that was before the railroad, there might have been.
Could change that.
Look at some of the terrain in Green Cove. The railroad filled in a lot of it. Could have been.
A hammock.
Somewhere
Right in here.
in the area.
Could have been.
So on the
But where
same,
they got the name Mizell's, I have no idea.
well, that could probably stand a little research. You might be able to find it if if everybody's not dead. The surveyor gave a certificate that surveyed 8,000 acres west of the river St. John's, beginning at the mouth of Buckley Creek,
Which is governor.
below White Spring.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Below White Spring, which the river flowing north, they would call Governor's Creek below, or when I read below, I was thinking south,
Yeah.
but
Well, I know the grant goes that way.
and following
Buckley's Creek
upwards
is
the margin of
Governor's Creek.
I'm with you.
following upwards the margin of that river, etc.
Uh-huh.
And so 5,000 acres in Lang's hammock, and another 3,000 acres in Cone's hammock. Those might be some of those records that burned.
Could have been. I've never seen those, on the old township plats, usually the surveyors would put information, but I've never seen that on any government survey.
Well, anyway,
Now, Ron, what's this you're reading from?
this is the abstract that my grandfather got in 1927
I'm with you.
when he purchased the lot, the quarter of a block, where the old Crescent building
I'm with you.
is.
Okay.
And
And what was the firm that issued the,
Florida Title and Guarantee.
you recognize them, Joe?
Yeah, they were out of Jacksonville, but Miss Talbot signed the certificate. So
Clay
she
County
must have
abstract.
done it for them.
And here's Clay County abstract.
That's
copy.
her.
There you go.
So
Now, let me see, she might have what she did, hold on, let me see. No, yeah, she certified it. Mhm.
Joe,
Karen's still one of your communicants, isn't she?
Yeah, yeah.
Who's that?
Karen Talbot,
Oh, okay.
right
Yes,
at
I'm with you.
Yeah, she is.
Mears.
Yes.
Yeah. Mrs. Talbot certified it and abstracted it for this,
Whatever.
oh, it says Clay County Abstract Company, but it's captured here. I think it's
There,
just
that's
Florida.
that's the invoice there.
Yeah, this is Clay County Abstract. This is just, oh, that's just a statement, isn't it?
I guess.
Yeah.
That was in there. There was a divorce in there. The Palmer and Ferris people bought a big part of that tract.
It was all the Palmer and Ferris, yeah.
And one of them
Excuse me, that
died, got a divorce or something.
wasn't Palmer and Ferris brother and sister?
Yeah, Sarah
P.
P. Ferris, she was a Palmer.
Right.
And Darius, let me see, Darius Ferris. Sarah Palmer. I think Sarah was Ferris's wife's sister. I think
There
they
you
were
go.
related.
Yes.
They're all buried up there in Jacksonville.
St. Nicholas. St. Nicholas, they developed
The only
that.
problem is they can't answer any questions.
Yeah.
David L. Palmer
There you go.
was his name,
Uh-huh.
and Darius P. Ferris.
Mhm.
They were married to sisters.
Yeah.
I think that's the way it was.
And they developed St. Nicholas and Mayport. Because you go up to Mayport,
That's right.
there's a Palmer and a Ferris Street up
Still got
there.
the streets up there, yeah.
But they owned a 1,000-acre tract here from the river to the creek called the Palmer and Ferris tract, out of which Green Cove Springs was a part of it.
This
This town side of Green Cove.
This abstract tracks one of them who died and remarried, and their spouse remarried, and even got the wedding and the death certificates and copies of the wedding and everything to prove that they were the legal heirs.
Yeah.
Which
Oh,
there's
yeah,
a
married life.
married
My
life.
goodness.
You recognize any of that, Joe?
Not this, no. I recognize it. I know the title, but I don't know. My goodness, this is some of the heirs that married. Eh?
Yep. Been waiting all my life to stump Joe.
Good luck.
You've stumped, well, you haven't accomplished much, I'll tell you that much.
Well, you got him on both those Hamilton days.
Yeah. He used to come to the shop and pump Dad for information.
I'll bet. I bet that was some kind of
We had
conversation.
some
We
good
had a lot of good conversation.
hanging over that counter.
Haven't we
He
all, Joe?
always could take time to talk, you know.
That's right.
And add a little something to it,
Yes.
maybe.
And for color commentary, go down to Cooter's and get a
Oh,
haircut.
that's right. That'd
Yeah,
be
yeah, that's
another,
the other one.
another dose.
So Ron, I believe you know more about it than I do.
Well,
Oh, yeah, okay. Sarah
Sarah
Ferris
P.
to David L. Palmer. Okay.
much as I would like to put this in my safety deposit box and keep it forever, I don't know if my children have any interest whatsoever.
Okay.
And
Oh,
so,
yeah.
What'd you find, Joe?
His widow Eliza Palmer, and then he tells about his daughter and so forth. Yeah.
So you're just trying to figure out where it's gonna end up? is
well,
that what you said?
if Vichy can figure out how to make a copy of this
Yes.
without destroying it,
Mhm.
I'd probably give it to her to put in here, or give it to you.
Before you leave today, let's walk over and visit with her and see if she could make a copy.
Okay.
'Cause I'd sure like to get a copy.
And,
keep over
and
here.
I'd like to give one to, Valerie also.
Yes.
Because she's, has an interest.
Do you know who he's talking about now?
Frances Kelly,
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
is her, we think
granddaughter. She bought that building.
Oh, I see, I see. Okay.
which has prompted all this excitement. Not the least of which
Frances Kelly's daughter,
We think granddaughter.
granddaughter.
She
bought it.
worked in the flower shop.
I
They had a
gotcha.
flower shop, and in addition to being very lovely, like Frances, she's a smart young lady that seems like they want to do something here. And I can remember when I felt that way.
Back when. Now, also, her husband, has just come off the city council, Stephen.
Oh, okay, I got you.
So,
Stephen Kelly, but then I had a conversation with him while we were doing all this, and he said he lived in the Jensen's old house down there.
oh, okay.
And was he related to the Broadus, the painter who lived around here for a while? There was a Broadus sign painter.
Now, see, there's something you just told me. I did not know or did not
And
remember.
I think he lived in that house when,
We'll ask him sometime, Stephen.
yeah, I'll ask him. But he goes by the name Kelly,
Yes.
and, which was a mystery to me.
Well, which would tell me that Nate was married to, remember Nate used to work for the school board, was married to Frances, as I recall,
Yeah.
that worked in the clerk's office. And he must be the grandson. You know, I'm gonna look at age-wise.
Could be,
Now, who else was in there? I don't know.
yeah. They've got some other partners.
But let me tell you this, when Broadus Raines came to Green Cove, I was talking to him one day, my interest was, my father's middle name was Claude Broadus Bowles. We have no idea where that.
Spelled the same way?
Yes.
I
And
declare.
I've asked all of our old relatives, he was originally from South Carolina, out near Newberry, but we've never figured out where that Broadus came from. We don't know if it was a doctor, if it was a neighbor, or whatever. But either way, but when Broadus Raines came here, I asked David, and he said, I don't know. He said, he couldn't answer that question either.
Who was E.F. Wilson?
That's gotta be some of Dale's folks, if I'm not mistaken.
They bought a tax deed on this property. It's
There
some
was a lot of Wilson.
1904.
Oh, yes,
Another name I ran across in here was Pons. And I think it might be, I don't know what made me think it was likely this our local Pons that
Yeah.
used to have the funeral.
Well, when I see the name Ponds, I think that's associated with St. Johns County. Old Menorcans.
Yeah.
And Luli Escanova.
Louis Canova.
Now, what's the name again, Ron?
Well, this says Luli, Lulie, Escanova.
I wanna make a copy of that.
And his grand or great grandson was the kid that invented the cell phone.
Did you know that, Joe? Yeah,
I
Clay
didn't know
High,
that.
Clay High graduate.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Listen to this, go ahead.
well, they had the newspaper. His family,
The Canovas.
at some point before my family got involved with it.
Yeah.
And
Oh, the Canovas
the
did?
Canovas did, and Tony or Antonica played piano for the Rotary
Yeah,
Club.
I knew her.
Yeah,
I knew Miss
she's
Canova.
a very sweet
I
woman.
bet you did, yeah.
And, now that all these people are gone, I'm mad at myself for not asking some of these questions.
Let me jump in there and put something together for you real quick. I ran you a couple of pages here of some old stuff found in the sink here. Make a long story, go ahead, Ron. There's two different pages there, I ran several copies. One of which, now let me back up. Also, I had found a picture of a couple, and it's identified as Patsy Rivers and her husband. I'm trying to remember the first name.
Fred?
I don't know, but I've got this copy of the picture, and it looks like a frame house around the turn of the century. It shows their two children there. So anyway, I thought, I'm gonna call old Vaughn Rivers and see what he remembers and whatever. He and his wife are in Italy, of all places. So I get to talking to the secretary, and I ask about this, and I ask about that, and she said, well, now, where was I coming from? I said, well, I was born and raised, raised in Green Cove Springs. I've known all these family names. I said, and something triggered a thought. And anyway, I said, well, what is your maiden name? Canova. Okay, and this girl sounds like she's about 25 or 30, 35. Anyway, I mentioned to her about Stephen, the telephone inventor.
Mm-hmm.
She had heard of just a story. I told her where she could look that up. But anyway, she's going to see if she can find me some history of the Canova family.
Oh, good.
You know, because this is what you and I were talking about here a while back. Out of the clear blue, boom. Here's somebody.
Frank.
There you go.
Frank Canova.
Aren't there a lot of Canovas in Bradford County? There's some Canovas in Bradford.
I've heard of a couple over there, but Joe would be telling you a story.
Isn't that a like a Portuguese name?
No, I think it's more Menorcans.
Menorcan.
If I had to guess. But anyway, as soon as I find out a little more from Erin, this young lady I was telling you about, this Long River secretary, might turn up some stuff
There
there.
was a Canova that was a public official to this county, wasn't
I think they were,
there?
well,
Tax collector or something?
and some public officials associated with the city of Green Cove around the turn of the century.
Yeah.
And I think the one I'm thinking about was a Confederate War veteran.
Yeah.
And just never seems like there's enough time to take that and trace that out. And give Joe a couple of copies of this. Joe, what you gonna be looking at here? I'll let you take a second and digest all this. You're gonna recognize a whole bunch of names, and there you would know.
Honorable Reverend Charles Conway.
Mm-hmm.
Ella Moody Wilson.
But I called Dale the other day. By the way, he was gonna try to come visit with us today. Dale says, yeah, I recognize some of those
Margaret
names,
Bennett,
but I don't know
yes.
who they are.
Oh, Lizanne Conway.
That's an unusual name, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
So these are Martha Conways.
I'm almost certain.
See, I'm related to these
I
people.
was gonna say, aren't you? Yeah.
Yeah. This was Jesse Moody. There were two Moody brothers of Benjamin Moody. I come from Benjamin Moody.
All right.
And then there was Jesse Moody, his brother.
Mhm.
They had two big families here.
About what time were they around? If you had to guess.
Jesse Moody was here I don't think he was here during the Civil War.
Okay.
After Benjamin Moody came from Georgia. They all came from Georgia.
Right.
He came down here after the Civil War, 1860s, I guess. But his wife was a Powers from St. Johns County.
Okay.
And there was Michelers and all of them that were all related.
Mm-hmm.
But Jesse Moody apparently they all moved to St. Johns County, but Jesse Moody located over in Clay County. And so Benjamin, who didn't want his children to marry Catholics, moved to Clay County.
Okay.
That old Protestant Catholic thing was still going on.
Well, because a lot of the ones who stayed married into
Sure they did.
those Menorcan and a lot of the Catholic
Yeah.
families over there.
Yeah.
Wow.
But
The Moody's you're talking about, were they been south of Green Cove and out
yeah,
to
south of Green
Landing
Cove,
somewhere?
out at about Belmore.
Okay. Yeah.
That's where they settled.
Yeah, Hazel Ryan's people.
Hazel Ryan was she was from the Benjamin Moody. I was from the Benjamin
Okay.
Moody property. But you take Christine Wilson, that's Dale Wilson's mother.
Yes.
She was from the Jesse Moody family.
Mhm.
And she's Betty McKinley
Now, there's
Vera-
one I would never have associated, but. go
Vera
ahead.
Gravely.
Yes.
See, they were from the Jesse Moody family
Okay.
also. This Luzine Conway, and they're all related. That's a, thinking of Luzine Conway. I got a list of her children at home.
Joe, let me ask you this, and I apologize for jumping around, but if I don't ask it,
Yeah, I understand.
Martha Conway that works in the clerk's office.
Yeah.
Now, was she related to Mercer Conway?
I think she married Mercer Conway.
Okay, then I've got that straight. If you remember when we were in school, there was a guy by the name of Pat Conway.
Pat
that
was
a-
Mercer's son, I believe.
Yeah. What I was telling Ron is, I want to say he was.
But not Martha. Pat, he was my previous marriage. I
Okay,
think.
that
I
was.
think. Then I heard one time he was adopted. I don't know.
That's okay.
Well, now, he and Martha had a daughter,
Yeah, they did.
Mary.
Yeah.
Mary. I haven't
I wonder
seen
what her
for
married
years.
name was. I'll tell you this story. I was doing something around, I think I told you, I was doing something around the house one day, and I noticed over at Bridges' house next door, two guys fooling around with a motorcycle over there. So I gotta go there and see what they're doing. Pat Conway and Jack Bridges got on that motorcycle and ran away to New Orleans. I thought, you guys are absolutely crazy. And that didn't last a couple of weeks, and then they were back in school.
Pat Bridges and
No, Jack Bridges.
Jack
And Pat Conway.
Pat Conway.
I remember Pat in school.
A real character from what I remember.
Yeah, he was.
To say the least.
See, Mercer Conway. Mercer Conway. I think Luzine would he marry a Conway?
Because there's several Conway names in there, Joe.
Yeah, she did. No. He's related to this
Okay.
people.
What you're reading from here, obviously was a photograph. We've never been able to find it. But I found these notes in the old safe here. And if we could ever find the photograph, then we'll know who some of these people were.
Yeah.
McQueen Saunders.
There you go.
The McQueens I knew around here were all black.
McQueen Saunders, that was Sam Saunders.
Probably
Father.
father or grandfather, somewhere along in there, if I'm not mistaken.
So that was a common name among
Oh, yeah.
white peoples too.
I think
But
so.
McQueen Saunders married one of these.
Okay.
He married into this family.
Joe
Yeah,
is-
here it is. Oh, no, this is Albert Saunders. I mean, it's Albert
There you
Saunders.
go.
He's in this because McQueen Saunders was related.
Joe, talking about the Conway family, do you know of any Conways still around here that know anything about family history?
Mary would be about my age,
Mm-hmm.
but I would have no idea where to find her.
John, I honestly,
I know I'm pushing the
no, I just, you're talking to somebody who walks down the street of Green Cove and don't know a soul anymore.
Or you
I
don't
don't-
recognize the face. That's
I don't know
exactly.
anybody in Green Cove anymore.
Yeah, I that happens.
Where
to
did
me.
they come from? I don't know.
But they came from somewhere.
We had it pretty nice back in the
We-
day.
we just didn't know.
Everybody knew everybody,
Yeah.
pretty much. I don't even know any public officials,
Don't feel bad.
except for the property appraiser is related to
Yes.
me. That's it. I don't know any of the rest of them.
Right.
And I
Now,
used to know all of them.
If
I
I'm
don't
not,
even know the clerk of the court.
don't feel bad. We suffer from the same ailment. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd go to the
And
post
she-
office in the morning and everybody in there you'd have a conversation with.
Yeah.
Rhonda Dale or William Wilkes or Joan Norton.
And now they're now all in the past.
We've got to face it, John.
Oh no.
We're has been.
We're on the backside of the mountain and we're going
No.
down fast.
We got so much to offer, but they just don't know it.
Or don't care.
Well, a little bit of both. Yeah.
Well, now you had a question about a church building, a picture.
Oh, yes.
Advent. I
Yes.
think you sent it to me.
I did. Have you, this was a postcard photograph of the Advent Church here in Green Cove. Any idea where?
Yeah, I
Okay.
believe I do. Let me see. The First Baptist Church, if you come up. You know where, let me see, hold on. Jackie Ridley,
Yes.
you know where she used to live?
Yes, I do. I picture the house right over here.
That church was right in there, either that block or the next block. I've seen a
So
picture
that would
of
be
it.
in the backyard of Calvin Wilkins.
Somewhere right in there.
Okay. We couldn't figure it out, but in this photograph, you'll see there's a sidewalk
Yeah,
and a paved street, and a curb and all that. But I could not,
I'm pretty sure that was where,
okay.
but that's Joe, according to Joe Berry,
Yep.
which
Close
is
enough for me.
freaking memory and just wherever.
Yeah, that's probably about as good a confirmation as we're gonna get on anything.
That's close enough for us.
We had another question. There was a building moved, that Smoky Sat used as a law office. And I'm thinking it was down there, across from the, maybe next door to where old Elam Weeks's house was. It's gone now. Your brother built a drainage pond over there.
That's right.
Was that, did you think that was Jim Norton's office at one time?
No, I thought Jim Norton had an office right across
Yeah,
the
you
street
did.
here.
He did here.
And then JC there was a little building next to,
That's-
JC's office was there. The building's not there anymore.
No.
Right.
It used to be a small building.
Come on in and take a load
Because I
off your
work-
feet.
I worked for
Oh, I
JC.
was gonna say, yeah, wouldn't you have?
My mother was a legal secretary for him, and then he had a little title company.
Oh, I didn't know
And
that.
I was still in high school.
In competition with Nellie?
Yes, yeah. I was still in high school, and JC hired me. And I'd come over here, and the courthouse was open on Saturday morning then.
That's exactly right.
I'd come over here and I'd make takeoffs, what we call takeoffs. We'd take the information off from the public record, take them back and post them in a geographical setup. We
I'm
had
with
our
you.
book set up in section, townships, range, and
Right.
subdivision. You post that document in that wherever it's supposed to be, according to legal description. Then you've got a whole title.
Yeah.
Chain of title right there, huh?
Yeah, and so that's what I did. I worked for JC. I didn't know what I was doing exactly, but I worked early.
Well, now, Joe, let me ask you this, because this was the clerk's office, and you worked here too, didn't you?
I never worked for the clerk,
But
but
you
I
were-
worked in the, oh, yes.
Where were the old records?
Right in
In the
there.
vault? Okay,
Went all the way up to the
that's exactly
ceiling.
right.
Vivian Somm was the deputy clerk when she was crippled herself.
Yes.
She had to climb up those
And pull this.
that old ladder to get a deed book from way up there and fell.
Oh,
Oh, my
no.
goodness.
I was in here. I thought she was all right though, but it was scary.
I bet Grace and George was here
Yeah.
in that time too. weren't they?
Grace, there wasn't but Grace, George, and
Patsy?
Vivian, and Sarah George Giger worked, and names.
I have the same problem, Joe. You don't have to apologize.
That's like my computer, that little thing that spins around.
That's right.
It's
It's
still
still spinning.
spinning.
It was Jackie Ridley.
Very good, yeah.
She
Got it.
worked it. That was it.
Yeah.
I'd bring them in a box of 500 envelopes now and then. I'd deliver.
That was the clerk's office.
Was this old safe in this room?
That was right there,
Because I didn't think it
same place.
Yeah.
weighs so much.
Nobody's gonna move.
And Joe, was there a counter somewhere here?
Yeah, there was a counter right back over here.
Yeah.
And they would post documents in
Uh-huh.
the index, and then there was another counter over there. Of course, there was a door over
Yeah,
there, going
exactly.
out that way.
Yeah.
And but that is the same safe. Back there was where the recording was,
Uh-huh.
recording machine. They had a big
Yes.
photostat machine.
Mm-hmm.
And Vivian did that. Well, Mrs. Pansy Quigley, you know,
Yes.
works here.
Got a picture of her right over there.
She did some of that. Before Vivian, I guess.
That's the Advent.
Yeah.
You remember that?
I don't remember it, but that's the church I've had reference to.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
That's on a postcard.
on a postcard.
I have that.
Okay.
I've got, I don't know, probably 1,000 postcards I bought, and got nobody interested in it.
Really?
I bought everything in Green Cove.
That you could find.
Wow.
And
I
I've
bet that's
got
quite a collection,
The St.
Joe.
John's River. I got all the St. John's River.
Very good.
I'll give it to my grandson or something one day. So I got that
By the way,
pictures
how's
in
all
it.
the family, Mary Ann and all of them?
She's doing good.
Uh,
He's doing good. My son David still works for the property appraiser. And
That's the Canova kid that grew up around here. Tony
Frank Jacob. Okay, that's Tony Canova.
Tony Canova's son.
What his father named Frank?
His
too?
father was Frank.
Yeah.
And he was a good bit older than Tony, as I recall.
Yeah. They lived right back around
That's
here
right.
where
They lived over on
near Miss
Myrtle.
Lizette's place.
mm-hmm.
Remember Miss
Right
Lizette?
across from the funeral home, now the
The
Jensen
Canovas
house.
did. When I knew
No, Lizette.
them, they lived down there on Myrtle, near Ruth Lee, where Sarah Bowe lived, and Bill Hutchins
Yeah.
down on that street, next to the old Brunson house.
I used to take piano lessons from Miss Lizette
Uh-huh.
down there.
Before Kathleen?
Yeah, before Kathleen. I was just, I quit because it just didn't register. But the Canovas lived next door.
Uh-huh.
She was a Canova.
Lizette.
Yeah.
It seemed like I remembered something about
Miss
her.
Lizette was a Canova.
Mm-hmm.
She was a real patron of the Catholic Church.
Oh,
of the
with that
Green Cove
name,
Catholic
yes.
Church. She was a sweet lady, but I just wasn't with it. Not taking piano lessons then, but I did take them later with Kathleen.
Now, the two sisters that were in the real estate business here for a while, 'cause I seemed to me like they were in business at that house across from Burlington.
Yeah,
But
yeah, that's right.
There was their name wasn't Lizette, was it?
Man,
Joe, it's hard, son.
why?
But there were two sisters.
I can see them.
Mm-hmm.
John, you don't remember them?
I know. I've got a pretty good picture, but I'm
They
trying
had
to
a big
remember the
old
name.
kind of a colonial kind
Yeah.
of house on that corner.
Sure did.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll think about it tonight. About
You'll
midnight.
it'll
wake
come to you
up
about
2
2
o'clock in the morning.
Mary Ann's gonna say, "What are you thinking about, Joe?"
What is their name? I do not.
It wasn't Neth, was it?
Yes.
There
Neff.
you go.
Hilda Neth?
Yeah.
Hilda Neff or Neff.
Neth, I think.
I don't know which it is.
Yes.
Joe Neff.
Now, what did he do? That name sure sounds familiar.
I don't know, but it's just a name that came to me, John.
I understand.
Joe Neff. He lived in that big house.
Yeah.
Hilda Neff, and then there was a sister, but I don't know. I don't remember. You remember? There was a sister.
Hilda sure sounds
Snap
familiar.
would know.
Huh?
Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
We lost Snap.
Did you know that, Joe?
Yeah, yeah. I'm doing his funeral.
Oh, are you? Okay.
That's tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would know.
Now, the viewing is
Tonight.
tonight at Russell.
It's Russell Haven of Rest at
Mhm.
6. I got to get out there this
I
afternoon.
want to get out
How is he related to the Chesters?
His mother was a Chester.
Okay. Because he worked for Alec,
Yeah.
in the auto parts business.
And Alec Chester's wife was my wife's aunt.
Wait a minute, say that again now. Alec Chester's, his wife?
Yeah. Alex Chester's wife was my wife's mother's sister.
Okay.
So she grew up here.
Yeah.
Well, now,
And her
also,
maiden,
Well, she was like me. I was a Berry with no berries here. You know how these sailors married, you know?
sure.
And my wife's father was in the military, but her mother's family were the kind of the Guthries and Wards and whatever I'm
And
not
others.
into.
Yeah.
In fact, my uncle married her aunt, so we've got the same first cousin. We don't talk about that.
no, well, that's the problem when you start digging deep, you occasionally
We
find
don't,
stuff.
we've established that we don't believe we're any kin.
Established.
Well, I knew some Guthries from down around, down south of,
Green Cove,
yeah.
like Hadsockville.
There was two different big families of them, but they were all related way back there.
I don't know if this is just me, but it seemed like all the women were beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they were pretty people.
Before I forget it, Carol Lee Chester. Now, how does she fit into that?
Carol Lee Chester's is Snap's first cousin.
Okay.
Her father was a bunch of Chester men. There was Alex Chester and her, Armand Chester,
Harmon.
remember him?
Yes, I sure do.
Armand Chester. And I'll remember that this afternoon, and I'll tell you.
Pardon me.
That,
Don't let us run you off. We're
no,
just
I gotta go check on my boys. They're,
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
They should be in here
Armand
by now.
Chester.
They were playing in the caboose.
Then Clara Chester, you know.
Oh, it's bank.
Claire at the
that
bank.
was Clara Chester was married to a Chester, and I don't remember what his name was.
And
She was Grace
Carlisle.
Carlisle's sister.
Mm-hmm.
Grace was a Chester? No.
No, her sister Clara Chester worked at the Bank of Green Cove.
Right, I remember Claire.
That was Grace's sister.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And also wasn't Grace Carlisle a Martin?
Martin.
Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, we've got a picture of the Green Cove Springs Police Department right over there, 1954, and some of those names are those officers
Oh, yeah,
that you just mentioned.
we got H.G. Smart, Rusty Roslin, Charles Bohannon.
Oh,
and
Chuck
Bill-
Bohannon. He chased me around a lot.
Bill Sweat and Slater.
Slater's the
Robinson.
chief, yeah.
Chief.
Slater.
1954.
Pat, we're just all sitting here reminiscing with names and places, and
Yeah, that, once we're gone, nobody else will
That's
know who
right.
they are or even care.
Yeah.
Well, you gotta write a book.
I've got some memories coming. J.C. Sapp, of course, he was an attorney, but he had the contract with the state of Florida to do right-of-way work.
right.
And of course, he never did anything on time. And so he come in here, and George Carlisle would lock him in the vault,
And say goodnight.
and he'd work all night on title work for
Trying to get caught
the
up.
state, so
Uh-huh.
he could get caught up.
I'll be darned. Old George.
That's pretty good. Let me throw another curve at you. Where did Steve get off to,
He
Trish?
went over to the archives.
Okay.
He's doing some cemetery work, I guess.
I figured as much. Okay. I'll catch up with him. Anyway, Steve that was in here a few minutes ago, another one of our members, he's got a little gang, and they're working an old cemetery,
Yeah.
old black cemetery north of Magnolia.
Yeah.
They're right across from the Pleasant Point Road.
Yeah.
And we think we've pretty well documented that was part of a black church that was in that area. And apparently the successors of that church is now the Mount Pleasant Baptist
Yeah.
Church on Middleburg Avenue.
Mhm.
But anyway,
And sorry to interrupt.
no, go, please do.
But on that subject,
Yeah,
I had a photo of a little, kind of a very rustic looking, rough hewn building that was the original Mount Pleasant.
this may be
And
the
I
church.
think it was out there.
Okay,
Now, is Robert Wright still around?
Reverend Wright is still around. I just went to a
Is
funeral
he?
last month, yeah. Older fella now, but he looked pretty sharp, he sounded sharp. Well, anyway, one of the guys that was here earlier is sort of leading the team effort out in doing that restoration work. But somebody brought to me a right-of-way notation or deed from the State Road Department in about 1958, 56, somewhere along in there, where they were getting ready to pave that road through Magnolia and whatever. But anyway, it says that this cemetery is associated with or next to the Conway subdivision.
Yeah.
That sound about right to you?
And Martha used to live out there.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I think that was Mercer Conway did that.
It would have to have been.
subdivision.
But anyway,
Yeah.
do you know anything about that little cemetery or anything you can recall?
No.
We walked through there, it's just a little rough.
Some of the
going.
names in it, I remember, I saw some on that, some of the names were some of the old black families.
Yes.
I noticed that, see, after the Civil War, during Reconstruction, some of that land out there sold to a black man named Stafford Clark.
Now, I've heard that
During
name.
Reconstruction, and Stafford
Stafford
Clark
Clark.
subdivision was a huge subdivision out there where Winn-Dixie is, Winn-Dixie is there. And it's just such a real big.
Was it actually a platted subdivision? Would there be anything in the county?
It's a planted subdivision.
Okay, what-
Stafford Clark.
Okay.
And some of those people were, I don't know whether they were related to him, but they got titles from him. He sold off some of the land. Of course, he died and his daughters,
I think his name is on one of those gravestones, isn't
might
it?
have been, he might be buried there.
Because we have determined that we've come up with about 32 different individuals,
Yeah.
just from, various sources and whatever.
There's
Some are,
probably more than.
oh, there is. As a matter of fact, our next step is we're gonna have the team from the state archives come over here with some ground penetrating radar. We've got everything pretty well cleared off where
Yeah.
they drag that lawnmower looking device through there. So
There used to be sort of a pillar.
it's still there.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure is. But we haven't found any connection yet with the black church that
Mount
we know.
Pleasant.
This Mount Pleasant. And the other thing is, as we know, that's Pleasant Point, okay? And Pleasant Point Road, and why is the church named Mount Pleasant? Is there any connection there?
There has to have been.
You would think.
I've heard there was a plantation out there of some kind.
Well, that's part of that Traverse Grant, isn't it, Joe, that area?
It was all part of the Travis Grant.
Okay, yeah.
But then there was a guy. The branch is named after him.
Well, you've got
Branch.
Sugar House and you've got Clay Branch and whatever, right?
Clay Branch is another branch.
Sugar
That's-
House?
There's another one.
Okay, but like a person's name?
That's the name of the guy. And I cannot remember his name.
Where's the branch?
He was related to his wife was Branning.
Okay, white guy then, right?
Yeah, he was a white. He
Branning.
owned a lot of that land. He was a Confederate. He was a real big Confederate. But there was a doctor. See, all these names I can't remember.
You doing all right?
was a doctor.
You're in the same boat with the rest of us,
A
Joe.
doctor that had a part of Magnolia. He was a Union. Magnolia was a
Oh, yeah.
was Union.
Yeah.
He was a Union man. Well, now here we had him versus this other guy, and I cannot remember his name.
Not Dudley.
Any other day,
That's okay.
I know his wife was a Branning.
Yeah, I've got a question mark on that one.
But that area was his.
Mm-hmm.
But I think after Reconstruction, he lost that, and that was sold off to Stafford Clark and all them, and that's when the black community and a lot of those people had title to land.
Oh, I'm
out
sure
there.
they probably did.
Some of them. I cannot remember that. That makes me so mad.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, don't worry, it gets worse, Joe.
Yeah, it gets worse.
You, Kaylee? Okay, thank you.
Oh.
Dad, the kids are being pretty good.
Yeah.
You've raised them right.
Oh, thank you. That's actually my neighbor's.
Joe, let me go back and you triggered another thought there. There was a name I was trying to come up with.
Thank you, Lane.
Summerlin in that area.
That was him,
Is that
John A. Summerlin.
Summerlin Branch, there it is.
okay?
There we go, see?
See, we got
Great minds think alike.
John A. Summerlin.
And wasn't he in the cattle production or supply business for the Confederacy? Or am I
He
imagining
was
that?
a big Confederate. I know.
Yeah.
I know that much.
My great grandfather never took off his Confederate uniform. And he worked for the governor, Governor Bloxham,
Yeah.
and,
Tell Joe about that.
he started a newspaper down in Brooksville, called the Brooksville Crescent.
My
And-
goodness.
Where do you
And,
think that name came from?
back then, it morphed into another newspaper, and but his main claim to fame was he was adjutant general of the Confederate Veterans Association, which had, they had conferences around New Orleans, Memphis, Jacksonville, and his thing was cataloging, and he was paid by the state to do this, cataloging all of the veterans in Florida in the Seminole, Spanish American, and Civil Wars, so that their heirs could get a pension, $2 a month or something like that. And he traveled a lot. And I think my grandfather was one that had to stay back at the bread shop and run the paper.
Somebody had to.
But that went from Brooksville. They sold that and moved to Live Oak and started a paper there. Guess what they called it?
The Crescent.
The Live Oak Crescent. But it soon morphed into it was the Democrat, the Live Oak Democrat, or what's that county over there?
Well, Live Oak ought to be what, well, that's a trick question, Ron.
Yeah. It'll come to me tomorrow morning. Anyway, they operated that for a while, and he sold his interest in that. And that was a daily newspaper. Live Oak used to be a big town. And he sold that, and he came to Green Cove in 1909, I think, 1909. And started the Clay County he bought the Clay County Times,
Yeah. I
which
remember
was
the
then in
County Times.
publication, and Canova had owned it up to then.
Yeah.
And a couple of other people, and he ran that for about 10 years and sold it. Was going into the orange crate business in Palatka. Gonna build orange crates with his brother-in-law from Brooksville, who was a Kugler. And they lived in a house, you talk about the Lizettes. Where Pete's used to be, there was a 3-story house there, and they rented rooms. And he was staying in a rented room somewhere around 1910 or so. And there was a ruckus. And like any good redneck, in the middle of the night, he went out and looked out, and there was something messing with the chickens down there. So he got his gun out and shot it. You've heard this story.
You don't like this.
He pulled his sidearm out and he took a pot shot at the fox or whatever was messing with the chickens down there. It ricocheted, and Ed Bradley's father, who was the postmaster, was
I know
looking out the
about
window
that.
to see what was going on, and it
Killed him right there.
ricocheted and
Oh,
killed him.
yeah, I know that story.
Yeah. I told it at Ken Bradley's funeral.
Yeah.
Which right across the
So
street.
they were good friends.
Oh,
They
yeah.
were, and our family.
And it really upset him, what I understand, because of the,
Oh, yeah.
when you killed,
Yeah,
Horace,
I don't-
Horace Bradley. was his
Horace
name.
Bradley.
Horace and Bradley.
And That was the end of the crate business, and at that point, I think,
What was his name now?
his name was Kugler, Coogler.
Okay,
was the-
and so he was related to you then?
My grandmother's
Sorta,
name was Kugler,
I got you.
and they were out
Oh, I
of
got-
South Carolina in Brooksville.
I remember reading about that,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And he was a postmaster,
He was the postmaster, Bradley.
Mr. Bradley was.
And of course, back then, you know,
Was it Horace Bradley? Is that what you said?
Horace M. Bradley.
All right.
Horace Merrick Bradley. Isn't that strange? And I know that they buried, he got killed, like it was in the morning. He was killed, and they buried him that same day.
That,
probably in the old Hickory Grove.
No, he's buried out at the Methodist Cemetery at Springbank, because that's where the Bradleys were related to the
Wow.
Wagers, and they started that Springbank Methodist Church.
and what it known as the Simpson Methodist Church? You ever heard that name?
Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
yeah,
Springbank.
yeah. And it was a Methodist church in Green Cove, but I don't know whether they were Northern Methodist or there was a division in the
Right,
Methodist
right.
church, Southern Methodist. But there was and the Bradleys were, in fact, their home place was out, that's where the name Springbank came from. His father's home place, he called it Springbank.
Horace's
Horace's
father's home place was Springbank.
was called, he called it
It was
Spring-
out there?
Out there at what we call Springbank now.
We need old Jimmy Farley now.
Yeah.
Because he probably ridden over that land quite a bit
Yeah.
on his horse.
I know that because John Bradley had diaries kept by his grandmother. And Horace Bradley's mother.
Wow.
He come one day and said, "Here, I want to let you read it." He trusted me to take these diaries home, and I read them all, and I made notes. And I
John
gave-
did. John trusted.
John Bradley. I gave them back to John. I think Bob Bradley's brother has them now. But I read all about that.
Wow.
It told everything. Mrs. Bradley, who was a school teacher, all those Bradleys were school teachers. Jenny Bradley. She was an Eddie.
Vernon's
Her,
clan.
they were related, and her husband was Edwin Bradley. They were all school teachers. They were big in the education in Clay County. And she wrote these diaries for her son Horace. And I made a lot of notes on them, but of course I gave them back.
My dad kept a diary a lot of the time, and I've read through some of them. And Edwin Bradley,
Yeah.
the pharmacist here,
Yeah.
and my dad were contemporaries.
Mm-hmm.
And for fun, they used to follow the ice wagon
Yeah.
when they chip off a block of ice to go in your ice box. There was always some chips